Good morning, everybody. This is Chad with Paladin, point of sale here. I apologize for the small delay in starting here. We had a little update to the service that we use for GoToWebinar this morning, and had a little bit of trouble getting it working here. So I apologize for the delay, but we won't be waiting any longer. I'm going to go ahead and jump right into this and get started. Before we do, I want to make sure that I'm not experiencing any more problems and that everyone can hear me. You'll see a little raise hand button on that GoToWebinar dashboard that comes up. If you guys could just click that for me, let me know that everybody could hear me. Thank you, Nancy, Katie, Janet, really appreciate it. Okay, cool. Let's go ahead and get this started. Everyone can see my screen, correct? I'm just second guessing all my technology this morning here, but everybody can see the screen. Is that correct? Can everyone raise their hand again one more time for me? Cool, awesome. Thank you guys, appreciate it. Alrighty. So today we're going to be going over a new feature that I'm kind of excited about. A lot of people have been asking for it, and I think it's going to help a lot of our stores, especially the ones who do large orders, a lot of custom special orders, those sort of things. It's going to help you manage that process. As when you get a huge order in, if someone's ordering 10, 20, 30, 100 of something, and you get 30 of those things in, you still have 70 left to remain them to give to them. Well, traditionally in Paladin, you would have to kind of separate those out into two orders, one for what you have, one for what remains to be given to the customer. Now we can manage that process all in one large order. All right, so today's agenda, what is the order manager? Just kind of gave you a little sneak hint there. Want to go over how to recall the order to view and sell it, how to turn a quote that you've created and given to a customer into an order. That way you can track what has been given, what has not been given. We have 3 new tools that pop up when you are using this order manager process. I want to show you how to add additional items to an order, complete that order, and then I'm going to hop over into Paladin as long as time allows here and show you a little bit of how to do this. Make sure that everybody understands the words that I'm saying here. Okay, so what is the order manager? Well, this new feature allows you to turn a quote into an order, sell the order items over time, and track what you've sold and what remains to be sold. So again, if you've got 25 items out, you got 20 of them on hand and 5 of them are coming on the next truck you get from the supplier, this is going to track 20 has been sold on this date to the customer, 5 still is remaining to be sold to the customer from this original order. And you can track that all in one. The order is going to remain open till all the items are purchased or until you manually close it. So if someone wanted that 25, you give them 20 and they say, you know what, I ordered those extra 5 for extras anyway, I don't really need them. You still can not have all these orders hanging out, taking up space. You can go through and delete them, and I'll show you how to do that. So this is going to allow you to manage large, complicated orders from your customers, to track the ins and the outs. And this feature is available automatically. Most of you should have it already. The way that our updates get released is we have an alpha group, which is a small test group, and then a beta group, which is a larger test group. And then as soon as we kind of okay it for everybody, we do rolling releases across the country. So starting on the West Coast, and it kind of rolls on over. Everyone should have this, I believe. If you don't, you should be getting it very shortly. But you don't have to do anything. There's no check boxes to enable it or anything. It will just be when it is available, and it should be. Okay, so build an order. Most of you, I'm going to go into this assuming that everyone here knows how to create an invoice or an order, and then use that F6 recall transaction button to store it as a quote. And again, I'll be going into Paladin, so if I'm losing you right now, just sit tight for me, and in 10 minutes or so, we're going to be going in and demoing how to do this. But F6, recall the item, recall the transaction, save it as a quote. You can see here that active orders are identified by a green check mark in the order column. If there is no check mark there, then this is just a quote still. And you can see in this little picture, I've drawn a nice little arrow there we can delineate between this one is an order. The Redwood house remodel is not an order. It is simply a quote because we don't have that checkbox there. Now, in order to turn that quote into an order, so in order to get that checkbox there, we would double click on it or recall it, and then press F5 once it is recalled to the invoicing screen. And you'll see that button down there, Order Manager. That is replacing the delivery icon. Now, we are planning on moving these buttons around a little bit because we have realized that we have kind of gotten a little ahead of ourselves here and removed the ability to schedule a delivery and also use the order manager simultaneously. So we are going to be moving these buttons around a little bit so the functionality to set up a delivery on an order that you are managing like this using this new tool here will be possible. So if that is distressing you right now, don't worry, it will be fixed shortly. But this new button, when you click it, this will become an order. And now you'll have some additional tools that pop up along the bottom that I'm going to go over here in a second. Now, an order item shows the original quoted amount and tracks the number of items already sold. To complete the transition from quote to order, you have to sell an item. It's not quite an order until you select a quantity that you're actually going to sell at that time to the customer. It doesn't have to be the full quantity. In fact, that's the point of the order manager. It will just be a partial quantity. You could have the full quantity on a few of the items. If you have 10, 20, 1, 10, like the picture displays over here, you could have, all of the 10, all of the 20, all of the 1, and only 7 of the remaining 10. And this would still remain open as a order that you give you owe 3 painting tapes 6 inches to the customer still. If you are not ready to make this sale, close the view and then the quote will remain there. You actually have to delete the quote to make this go away entirely. And I'll show you how to delete the quotes here in a little bit. If you try to input a number greater than the original quoted quantity, let's say that the original quoted quantity over here was 20, and I want to give the customer 21, the system will auto-adjust that back down to 20 and say you are trying to sell them more than you have originally agreed to sell the customer. That will have to either be done on a different line item later on or as a different transaction. So it's going to make sure that you're sticking to the original terms that you kind of laid out as far as the quantity of items that you're trying to sell to the customer. All right, so once we do this and we sell an item, we buy an item off of this and give that to the customer, and then we recall it again, now we get some additional tools. So we have the Display Open, Display All tool. You can see this picture here is what the order will look like when I recall it again, and it is an order now in a managed order. You can see we've got the display open mode and we've got the display open, on the top line there, I should say display all mode. All of the items on the original quote will appear. So if you just hit the display all, you're going to see all of the info. If you just hit the display open mode, only items with the unsold quantities will appear. Meaning if I've got 10 on an order and I've sold 7 to a customer, it will say, hey, just 3 on that one. So it's kind of letting you know here, this is what remains to be given to the customer. Second tool here is the F5 Item History tool. When you click on that, it's going to show up the item history, and that will show the sales history for that order. So we can see that on the 15th of December, we sold 2 of these items to the customer. Just kind of a little bit of tracking there. When you have highlighted the autofill quantity tool is what we're going over next here, and when you've highlighted 1 or more order items that have not been fully sold, click the autofill quantity or press F6, the quantity value will show each order item's unsold amount. So if we sold 3 out of the 10 and we hit autofill, a quantity of 7 will appear there as that is the remaining quantity to be given to the customer. Again, if you manually enter an order item quantity that exceeds the original unsold order amount, the quantity will automatically be reduced to the unsold number. So in the picture highlighted over there, the value, we have 20 of these items that were quoted, 2 of them have been sold, And so if you hit the autofill quantity, it is putting a number of 18 in that field. Now, once you have pulled up an item, you can still, or once you've pulled up a order, you can still add items to this ticket. You just can't add them that exceed the quantity to the original items. It's not really part of the order manager, any new items. They're just treated like any old item added to an invoice. But you can still add items beyond that point. So don't feel limited if the customer is buying a bunch of stuff and then throws a stick of gum or a candy bar on top of there. That's totally fine to keep that within this sale. You can just scan it and sell it right at that time, contained within this sale as well. And then finally, you just complete the order. When all the order items are purchased, the original order is automatically deleted. You don't have to go into the recall transaction window and do order manager cleanup. It's going to do that for you automatically when all of the quoted items have been given and sold to the customer. The receipt includes the order information as well. We can kind of see that in the picture we have displayed to the left there. If the customer has completed the purchases from the order, but there are still unsold items on it, you can go into F6 recall transaction and just manually delete the order. In order to do that, recall the transaction, select quote order, and simply click delete. Let's go ahead and hop over to Paladin, make sure that I didn't lose everybody here. Okay, so I'm at the invoice quote screen. Let's just go ahead and go through a few of these things, make sure that I didn't lose anybody in that process. Okay, so I'm just going to bring up a few items. I don't have a barcode scanner attached to this computer, so I'm just going to search for a couple. There we go. Probably should put a quantity greater than 1 in a few of these. Let's do 4, 5. There we go. All right, F8 to add the items to the invoice. I'm going to go ahead and store this transaction. At this point, it's still just a quote. Call it Chad's order. And I'm going to store this. Okay, so this is just a quote, just like any others. We could go ahead and print a quote at that time and give that to the customer. Customer now comes in and wants to turn that into an order, wants to purchase some of those items. I'm just going to go over here. You'll see quote icon is now turned into quote dash order. So this is a way to convert a quote into an order or to simply bring up old quotes. We can see neither of these that I have right here have the checkbox, meaning neither of them are managed orders yet. They are still quotes. Let's recall one of these. Just double click on it. And we see our new handy dandy little order manager button here. I'm going to click this. Now we can see the 3 new tools pop up here, and it's asking me what quantity I would like to give, but still displaying the original quoted quantity. Let's go ahead and do this. Remember, in order to turn this into a managed order, we need to actually facilitate the sale of one of these items, if not more. So let's sell all of this item, and let's sell partial of this one. And you know what? Let's sell one from this as well. That way we've kind of got a smattering. I can show you what this looks like. You can go ahead and check this out. We're just going to do cash, make this real quick and easy for me here. Excellent. Okay, let's go ahead and use F6 to recall this now. Now when we do this, hey, look at that. We've got a green checkbox here. We can tell this has been partially completed. This is not just a quote. We've actually given some of these items to the customer. Double click on it to bring them back up. And we've got some additional information here. Now I can see, oh, look at this item. Quote 1, sold 1. This item, quote 3, sold 2, 1 remains. So if I'm displaying all right now, which I am, I can see all of the information, the original quoted price and the amount that I've given to the customer. If I switch this over, now I can only see the items that remain to be sold to the customer. Notice that one that was 1 of 1. This item, I've completed the entire quantity that I originally quoted to the customer. And if I hit display open, that item goes away, letting me know I don't really need to do anything else with that item as I've already completed my end of this bargain. Now, if I select an item, I can go to item history. This will just pop up a little box that says, hey, today, about 1 minute ago, you sold one of these to the customer. And this is the invoice number if we wanted to go over to the customer module in the sales friendly hourglass and look for this invoice. We can find it right there under invoice number this. And then finally, this last tool allows me to do autofill. This will go ahead and autofill the quantity of the selected items. If I select all of them, now we'll go ahead and say, hey, you quoted 3 originally, you sold 2. That means that we have 1 left. You didn't sell any here, but you quoted 3, so we put 3 here. Quoted 5, sold 1, we put 4 here. You guys can do the math. I'm sure it's making sense to everybody now. Now, if I want to, I can go ahead and add an additional item at that point. At this point, let's in that candy bar scenario that I painted earlier, this customer picked up a self-stick notepad and wanted to have one of those added to this invoice. I can go ahead and do this. It adds a note right here that does not show up on the customer's receipt that says, hey, Mr. Clerk, this items below this line are not part of the managed orders. If you're not completing it all right now, know that. And let's go ahead and finalize this transaction. And just like any other transaction that we do within Paladin, this one is now completed. I don't have a receipt printer, and so the system's rather angry at me right now. We can see that this one has gone away. Now this guy right here, if I wanted to delete it, this customer never turns this quote into an order, or they turn partially of it into an order, but they're never going to come back and get the rest of it. Well, I would simply just select it like I would a quote and simply delete it. And that, my friends, is how this cookie crumbles. Let me bring up my little thing here. Does anyone have any questions? There's a question pane you can go ahead and type some questions into if anybody has a question on this feature. You can always call, if you think of a question immediately following this webinar, which is kind of the way that our brain works, getting some coffee, you'll think of, oh, just the best question that you should have asked 5 minutes ago. Well, simply give us a call. Paladin support should be able to answer it. And if they are unable to answer the question, simply ask for Chad Klein, and someone will send you over to me. I'm not seeing any questions come through, so I'm going to go ahead and conclude this webinar. Thank you again for your patience. I apologize for the tardiness of our starting here. Can the order be resaved? Scott Peters just asked a question, can the order be resaved? Yes. If you don't complete all of the items on the order, you can save it. It will be saved. The remaining items will be saved. Once an item is completed, I'm not sure if you're asking if we can duplicate it, and the answer would be no. Once all of the items that are quoted are sold to the customer, you will have to create a new one in order to duplicate that. But you should be able to resave it as many, open it up and resave it as many times as possible, as long as the order is still an open order, meaning that there are remaining unsold items on that order to be given to the customer. Does that answer your question, Scott? Scott is asking, can the order be resaved so the cashiers can pull it back up and just invoice it out? Absolutely. It's just a quote at that point. And you can always bring up a quote and cash it out. If you have sold half the items on there, then it'll be saved as an order, but you can still just double click on it just like you would that quote, and the cashiers can pull it up and invoice it out. No problem, Scott. All right, guys, I don't see any more questions coming through. I'm sure everyone has some things to do with their day here, so I'll let you get to it. Thanks again, as always, for joining us this morning. If you want this webinar recording, we'll always put it up a couple days post when we get done displaying it here. So look for it in a couple days, and you will see it on our webinar list. Thanks again, and always, and keep an eye on that update box for new features, fixes, and, of course, the advertisement for our next webinar. Thanks again, everybody, and have a great day.